Hello and welcome to this latest episode of Anfield Voices. Now, normally I do it on a Wednesday to put out on a Thursday, but with so much going on, I really wanted to get some stuff off my chest about Liverpool versus Manchester United and the last four games. I also listened to Klopps' interview on Diary of a CEO, which I thought was really interesting. I wanted to talk about that. And maybe touch a little bit on Frankfurt, although the press conference is until 6:30 on Tuesday, and I'm recording this just before then, so I'm not going to have team news or anything like that, although I believe Gravenberch isn't going to be available. He twisted his ankle against Man United, and I can't imagine that he's going to get to play. So let's start with Liverpool. I was extremely frustrated on Sunday from the get-go when I saw the team news. This is the same team that played Chelsea. He dropped Wirtz in that game as well, and in the second half he brought Wirtz on, and as soon as he did, we looked a lot better. Wirtz controlled the game, he created chances, we did as much as we could. And then what Slot did was he brought on loads of attacking players, taking off defensive-minded players to try and get us that winning goal. But what it actually means is you have 6 attacking players, 7 attacking players who are all trying to get into the same positions. So Wirtz is on top of Jones, Jones is on top of Ekitike, Ekitike is on top of Gakpo, Gakpo then moves central, he gets in the way of Isaac or Chiesa, and Salah is still left out on the right, not really knowing what he's supposed to be doing. I don't think throwing everything on and the kitchen sink really helps, because you've got too many people trying to get into the same 3 or 4 positions. And then you have a corner in the last minute and you concede a goal, because all of your defensive-minded players are on the bench. That's now happened against Palace. It's happened with Galatasaray. It's happened with Chelsea. And now it's also happened with Man United. I mean, that wasn't so last minute, but it was still late on after he'd made all the changes. I defend Slot a lot. I think he will get it right. But what I would say is, I thought after the international break, he had a good couple of weeks to think about it. I was quite surprised that he played the same side that started against Chelsea. It frustrated me a little bit. I didn't think he was going to wholesale change, don't get me wrong. But I thought he may have changed something. And it didn't look to me like he did. Man United, all their plan was to boot the ball up and win the second ball. They were happy for Konate and Virgil to win the first one, but then what they did was they then pressed before the ball landed for the second ball. They pressed to get it, and it left like Bruno Fernandes in so much space all the time, and our players scrambling around to try and get the second ball. Like, we looked lost in a lot of the game. And it's a really simple way of getting through the press, isn't it? And it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of teams go, well, let's just do that. You know, Palace was similar. Arsenal tried it, they weren't so successful. Chelsea didn't really play long ball so much, but winning the second balls is a big issue for us at the moment. And that's because our midfield don't look like they're really at it. Szoboszlai does. Gravenberch does to a point, but I think he wants to go further forward. Personally, if I was Slot, I'd be telling him no. The position you need to be in is number 6. And you need to stay in number 6. And that is now your position, whether you like it or not. I think you've got to have that conversation. Salah, he never uses the overlap anymore, so then Conor Bradley stops doing it, because he's like, why would I do it if you're not going to pass me the ball? You know, Isaac asked for the ball multiple times and wasn't getting the feed because Salah would cut in and shoot. You know, if you're scoring, then crack on, Salah. If you want to do that and be selfish, if you're scoring and you're getting the numbers, then no problem at all. But if you're not getting the numbers, then you need to start giving other people a chance. Similarly, on the other side with Gakpo, Kerkez's whole game really is to overlap the winger, get the ball on the byline, and put a low cross fizzing across the box for players like Ekitike, Isak, Salah at the back post to get an easy goal. And Gakpo, every time Kerkez passes him, Gakpo cuts in and tries to shoot. If he misses and it goes out, Kerkez has got to get back very quickly into position. If it's blocked and United or whoever win the second ball, Kerkez is in trouble because he's now in low man's land on the byline of the goal with no ball, and his area is completely unoccupied. Now, people blame Kerkez for being out of position. Personally, I think that's actually Gakpo's problem because he should be using him more often. Not saying every time, but more often. That's why he was bought. And this goes back to the formation that I've now done a few times on TikTok of 4-3-1-2. Personally, I think I'd be dropping Gakpo and Salah. And I would be playing Ekitike and Isak up front with Wirtz behind them. I play a midfield three of Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, and at the moment probably Jones until McAllister finds his form, and then I'd put McAllister back in. And then I would play Kerkez, Virgil, Konate, and Frimpong. And that allows Frimpong and Kerkez to actually fly up and do what they're supposed to be doing. And you have Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch helping out the defence and also helping out the midfield to then get the ball to Wirtz, Isak, Ekitike. With that, Wirtz also doesn't need to be coming back to try and help the midfield because there's already enough of them. He doesn't need to come back to try and get the ball because they'll be there to pass it him forward. He will then be in the pocket of space he needs to be in. I think that's the setup that we need to do. And I do truly think that might be a setup we see when Salah's at AFCON, because he'll have no excuses really with Salah not being there. He may as well play it. But if you saw what Frimpong did, he did more in the 5-10 minutes he was on of crosses, trying to get the ball in, taking a man on and crossing the ball, taking a man on to get to the end line and then cutting in. That's what he is here to do. But he can't do it when Salah's on the pitch because Salah doesn't pass him the ball. He uses his overlap to cut inside and shoot. But it worked when he came on and Szoboszlai was behind him because he was the winger. I just think that formation would work so well. I really do. And then if you wanted to bring in Gakpo, he could replace Ekitike. If you wanted to bring Salah in, he could replace Alexander. He could brace Isak or Ekitike in that front too. I think it works so well. I think you'd get the best out of the players, the new players that we have. And I think that's the way forward for me. Can I see Slot ever doing that? No, probably not. Maybe when AFCON's on. Maybe. But more than likely, he'll just play Frimpong in Salah's position and will carry on playing this sort of 4-3-3 that doesn't quite work, in my opinion. It's very frustrating, to say it slightly, because if it happens once and you don't change it, it's like, okay, fair enough. He might have thought it was just a bad day. If it happens twice and he doesn't change it, you think, okay, well, he knows the lads better than us. He knows the teams we're playing. They get to see more stats. If it happens 3 times, you think, wow, we need to change something. When it happens for the 4th time, what don't we know? Like, he must see all the same samples that we do, the same stats that we see, the same highlights. What are we missing? And I never thought Slot was a stubborn manager. You know, we praised him so much last season for changing things when he needed to, he would react. And that was the biggest difference between him and Klopp for me, was Klopp would carry on just pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and try and break through. Slot would come on in the second half, make a change the formation, and we'd win a game. It happened so many times, and I was like, wow, it's amazing to see someone who changes the team so often. But there was a good 10 that started every game, and then a good amount of subs that he used. You'd almost say he didn't use enough subs. Whereas this season, he's almost used every single player he's got in the team, but you don't know if they're going to start, whether they're not going to start. You don't know who's going to be in which position, but you know that the formation is always going to be this 4-3-3, and I just don't think it really works. The press isn't there, so we're not defending from the front, and our defence going backwards seems open. One pass seems to absolutely cut us apart. And I just don't really know why you wouldn't change it. So I hope he does. I hope he finds a game where he can try out these things. I mean, Frankfurt away, they got beat by Atletico Madrid 5-1, and obviously we beat Atletico Madrid, but then they also beat Galatasaray 4-1 or 5-1, which, you know, we didn't do. They lost to Bayern Munich 3-0. They're not at home. They're a good side. I think they play like a 4-2-3-1, something like that. So they've got a lot defensive-minded players. Be hard to break down. It's just going to be it's another hard game, and then on the weekend you've got Brentford away. Again, then none of them are easy in the Premier League. I know that. But if I was going to try something, you could afford to lose one more Champions League game, I think, and then it gets tricky to get into the top 7 or whatever it is, top 8. And we've still got Real Madrid to play at Anfield. So is this the game that you gamble and try a new formation? Maybe send a message out to the players who aren't performing very well? I think I would. I don't think Slot will. So it'd be interesting. I don't think Gravenberch's going to play, like I said, so he's going to have to play someone else at the number 6, probably Jones. I think Wirtz has got to play, personally. I mean, he's going to know them so well anyway, isn't he, already, from playing them for the last couple of seasons, although they'll also know him quite well. Ekitike will know him quite well, I'd have thought. Again, they'll know him. It's a tough game. His press conference tonight would be very interesting, I think. So keep your eye out on the TikTok when you see it. Right. Klopp and his interview. If you haven't listened to it or seen it, I recommend it. The majority of it is really interesting. It starts, obviously, from where he began and, you know, how he grew up, where he gets his mentality from and his beliefs from, which are interesting to hear. It's fantastic to hear his laugh again. I know that sounds like I'm talking about an ex, but it's just one of those things where it makes you smile, doesn't it? He talks about his time at the first club he managed, getting him into the Bundesliga for the first time. Then he talks a little bit about Dortmund, but not a huge amount. And then he talks a lot about Liverpool and his time at Liverpool. I have seen a lot of edits of this where he has been cut to make it look like he says, oh yeah, I'd come back to Liverpool, of course I would, or something like that. That's not quite how it was. There was a question asked to him of, if there was a possibility that you would be offered the Liverpool job again, would you go back? And he said, I've always said that I will never manage another club in England, so yes, there's a possibility. However, I don't miss 12 interviews a week. I don't really miss the changing room because they smelled. I don't miss the standing outside in the rain for half of the season. I don't miss the press conferences, 3 press conferences a week. I don't really miss the media. I don't really miss this. I don't really miss that. And at the moment, I'm really enjoying my life. I'm enjoying the people I'm working with. I'm enjoying the project I'm on. I'm enjoying a different type of coaching. I'm enjoying spending time with my wife, my kids, my grandkids. So never say never, but if it's going to happen, it's going to be a long time down the road. That's actually what he said. So don't believe all of this stuff that you've been hearing about how he said, oh yeah, I take the Liverpool job back, no problem. Because I've seen a lot of people on social media saying, oh, he wants to come back. Well, sack Slot then and bring him back. That isn't going to happen. And sacking Slot is not the right way to do it, because I think he is good enough to get this team working. You think about when our whole midfield changed. Klopp took a season had a season with them, and I think we just got third after a bit of a run at the end of the game, end of the season, and did we get to I can't remember, we may have won the Carabao maybe, but we lost everything else. He struggled that season a bit because we changed 3 players basically. Well, Slot's changed a lot more than that, so we need to give him a season. Personally, and you might hate me for this, personally, with all these changes, I think if we could get a cup and stay in the Champions League top 4 spot, top 5 spot in the league, I would actually be okay with that this season. Purely because not many teams can defend the Premier League title. Not many teams have ever won it back to back. And on top of that, this team has been brought for the future. If they need one season to get the team together, but stay in the big competitions, and then next season go, right, let's do it and absolutely smash it, and then try and keep that team together for the next 4 or 5 seasons and win as much as you can, I think that's the way you're going to have to do it. So we need patience. We need to give them time. And Klopp said very similar things himself in this interview. He also spoke about the money. And I've also seen clips of this where he says, oh, I never believed that we had £450 million to spend. Well, actually what he says is, I was never told we had £450 million to spend. But when I was there, we changed the stadium. We changed the training ground to now one of the best in the world. We spent all this money on grassroots. We spent all this money on this. We spent all this money on this. And what he basically said was, I always said when I do a project, I want to leave the place better than when I found it. And I feel like that's what we did by upgrading all these things. So he may not have got all that money in one go, but he did get plenty of money. And on top of that, you've got to think that he did bought a lot of players. And actually, if you added up all of their money, I mean, you think of Alisson, you think of Virgil van Dijk. I mean, the list goes on. It's a lot of money, and they'll go, "Oh yeah, but you managed to sell Coutinho, and he used that money." Well, we sold a lot this summer for Slot to be able to buy this many players. So it's not like Klopp didn't get money; he did. He speaks about his time with Michael Edwards and how fond he is of them, and Julian Ward and all the rest, and he makes a point of saying the team wouldn't have been this good without them, but it was also a team effort. It wasn't just like Michael Edwards, it was the whole team that did this and managed to buy all these players and select all the right players. And then he speaks about Jota as well. He gets a little bit emotional about Jota. He speaks about his relationship with Nunes at the end, and how he understands how Nunes was. Basically saying, look, he wanted to play more, and he was also frustrated he wasn't scoring as many goals. And I was frustrated he wasn't scoring as many goals and felt like I couldn't play him as much. So I could understand why he'd be frustrated, and so was I. It's a really good listen. You should go listen, I think. So yeah, to sum up, I'm frustrated with Slot, but I think he's good enough to take this squad to where it needs to go. But I think he needs to make some big decisions on some big names, and I think he needs to try a different formation. And you should go listen to the entirety of the Diary of a CEO with Klopp, and not just see what you look at, or do not just listen to what you see on social media, because they are not the same thing. Have a lovely evening. There is a press conference video coming later. Come on, you Reds.